with respect to the state, county streets must be followed, that they must be conformed to. And here we've shown that the TPS letter requires a right turn lane, and this project is removing it.
And Mr. Abrams, I gave you an extra minute. How much longer do you think you need?
Sure.
Because I know you have other presenters too.
Right. Well, I'll jump over to this slide right here, which just shows that some of the traffic counts that are being relied upon by the applicant are likely skewed, because if you just look at the Palm Beach County property appraiser aerials, you'll see that the parking lot's full, and if you look at 2021, it's empty. And so I think that obviously the impact of the pandemic should be taken into account, and it was not taken into account in the applicant's analysis. I would also just like to ask one question, if I could, across of the city's planner, Tamasha.
Yeah, we do cross-examination at the end. So,
oh, okay, that's
yes.
fine. Okay, no problem. I'm going to call the representative of the owner of 6501, John Augen. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Augen, I believe you're out of the room, so you'll take the oath when Ms. Siddons administers it. Did you take the clicker?
If anyone else plans to speak and they didn't get sworn in before, now's your time. Okay. Mr. Augen, will you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that any testimony you may give before this public hearing will be truthful and accurate?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council. Jonathan Ungian, 6501 Congress Avenue. My family has owned this property for 25 years. We built it 22 years ago. I have worked there for the last 17 years. So pretty much an expert in the area. So how do we do this?
It just happened. Just give it a second. There you go. All right.
This project has never met the warrants for development under PMD and the matrix. This is after City Council has already lowered the bar for PMD applicant development by 33% from 150 to 100 points. City staff has interpreted meanings in the matrix in which meanings are extremely clear and interpretations are not needed, while overlooking ordinances that the definitions are clear, yet are applied inconsistently for years. All for this applicant's interest, ignoring what is best for the general public's interest, which is all you truly work for. 50% of buildings do not have their main entrance opening to a street. This is what not open to a street looks like. Those buildings that staff are giving points for connectivity, which obviously the main entrance is not connecting to a roadway. 6 feet of unobstructed sidewalks connecting all buildings is in this matrix. It is also in this amendment and presentation on behalf of the applicant. However, points were applied and those sidewalks do not connect. These buildings are what a main entrance that opens to a road looks like. This definition and meaning is clear, what a property like this looks like. Every building faces a street somewhere. There may be lakes, shrubs, oceans. However, on the other side of that is a road. This is the way the city is interpreting this, and it is against all natural logic. Centroid parking. This is meant to keep short distances walked between parking areas and the buildings. The definition states that the distance measured from the centroid point to each parking facility to the main entrance of the building. This is not what the city did. The city is using various entrances and also has removed parking restrictions and is adding parking in the garage at this time as part of this amendment. So this should be looked at. They took distances to every available door, which many are clearly marked not an entrance. Almost all doors on Building 4, 6409 as shown. Commercial tenants will be using this garage, and the distance is not counted in the centroid parking from the parking garage to the commercial buildings. Additionally, As there are parking spaces being removed and this garage is growing in size as part of this amendment, it must be looked at. The scale, which is the red line, when superimposed over each of those 10-foot parking stalls, adds up to more feet than what's represented there. This leads us to believe the scale for measurement is not correct. As the plan relocates parking underneath the parking garage, this cannot be approved without this being corrected. Complementary uses. Complementary uses, the meaning of this is to measure the specific walking or bike path distance from one specific use to another specific use type. This is not intended for crow's use, as the city staff has stated repeatedly. Ordinance 5225, which the city alluded to on page 2 of the matrix for average uses, the second slide in the presentation shown today, gives the specific definition and meaning of complementary uses. Complementary uses means uses that allow a person to meet multiple daily needs by walking from one use to another, and it has been applied inconsistently. Traffic is a major concern. There are multiple easements for deceleration lanes that are necessary for roadway safety, and there is no workaround for this. The first picture shows the extremely short distance from my front exit, which my tenants will be leaving at PM peak, which is between 4 and 6 p.m. in Mass. Congress Avenue is very busy at this time. At the same time, everyone heading south on Congress returning home to residential, which will be a new opposing traffic pattern, will be returning home from work. Deliveries will be coming down this roadway to the residential. At the same time, tenants from AmTrust Financial and My Side Entrance will be coming out onto Northwest 65th Street, heading to Congress to make a right turn and head south. This is a major safety nightmare. There is no enforcement for commercial vehicles to not use Northwest 65th Street as well, especially those that are in existing buildings 2, 3, and 4. The roundabout, which the county did not want because this entrance was supposed to be for future residents only, can now be used as a potential exit. Signs are not enforcement. The city is well aware of trespassing that we have had on our property, which we have signs for, and police have been out and do nothing to enforce it. We have tried. There is no suitable entrance for construction. Main entrance for Amtech Commercial nor Northwest 65th Street are not made for construction, and the way construction will upend our quiet enjoyment and businesses. We have asked repeatedly, as our neighbors at Florida Peninsula and AmTrust. Lastly, this is an extremely dense project going on what is a truly 3-acre parcel. The city is not making any existing office building improvement to their property. They are counting parcels which have a separate owner now from the residential developer and giving credit to build more units this way, including all of the parcels, and making this a 21-acre property. It is not. It is a 3-ish acre property, and the most that should be built should be around 70 units. Additionally, the owner who owns the commercial is not developing residential and massively profited off this parking lot for $13 million.
Mr. Unjin, could you please conclude? We gave you more time.
1 minute.
You had 2 extra. Just please try.
I'm the owner of the property.
Try to keep it to a minute, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Additionally, the owner who owns the commercial, who is not developing residential and massively profited, will see amazing PMD zoning on their existing, outdated, dilapidated office buildings. This city needs to do better and not approve this project, as it hurts the existing community in so many ways. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I appreciate the commission's indulgence. I would just like to make a quick 1-minute closing if I could. Would
Sure.
that be allowed? Sure. Thank you. Appreciate it. I'll just conclude by saying that, again, we're not suggesting that the commission can reverse its decision from the last time that this application was considered. We're just saying that the commission should look closely at how the changes that have been made and that are being proposed in this application are significant, and that there is not a substantial basis in fact. There's not competent evidence to support the removal of a deceleration lane. This commission is ultimately responsible for upholding the level of service standards on roadways in the city, especially stress roadways, and it's very important for the community that measures be taken to improve level of service and not to reduce it. And we think that that the commission can do that and can stand up for not just community, but for those who are affected directly by this project by insisting on that remaining. I'd also just finally say that the mobility matrix that the applicant is relying on to show 100 points, I think the connectivity element of that matrix is directly affected by the change on the deceleration lane. You can't say it's an excellent you can't say it's an excellent connectivity in spatial distribution. It's not a warrant. It doesn't warrant 6 points as a score, or 3 points even. So, it's not good. It's poor essentially. So, I would just conclude by adding that. And if there's any questions, I can address them. Otherwise, I'll turn it over.
Thank you. No questions? I see no questions. All right, thank you. This is still a public hearing, so anyone else who wishes to speak on this matter before we close the first, before we proceed to cross-examination. Anyone else wishing to speak? Okay, Mr. Sil, you have to be sworn in, though, so we'll just administer the oath if you want to speak on this matter. So, and there is public request later. This is only on this particular matter, Mr. Silva.
Mr. De Silva, if you're speaking on this item, you need to be sworn in. Okay. Do you swear or affirm that any testimony you may give before this public hearing will be truthful and accurate?
Yes.
Thank you.
Please give your name and address. Thank you.
My name is Chris De Silva. I live at 1121 Northwest 13th Street, building number 3, 33486, Boca Raton, Florida. I do believe that I may be a owner and the new owner of a company, so I would like some assistance with it if possible. And I'm not good at mechanics and I'm not good at trafficking and stuff like that, but I am good at like having people in those professions, you know.
Mr. De Silva, I think you wanted to speak under public request. That'll come a little later in this meeting. This is only for this particular development if you wanted to talk about that. Otherwise, if you want to have a seat, we'll gladly invite you back up for public request.
Okay. Say that one more time?
Sure. This is only, we have public requests where you've spoken before on any topic of interest. That's a little later in this meeting. This is only to discuss the development application that the people involved have been discussing, this one particular project. So if you have comments about the project or this proposed amendment, that would be this resolution. Now would be the time. Otherwise, if you wait a little bit, we'll come back to your general comments.
I just feel like, you know, things like that, I could make it easier for them to flow better and stuff like that. Coming up with ideas for, you know, that type of stuff. So that's it.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Before we proceed to cross-examination, I want to ask staff because I want to give the I want to give Millennium full opportunity to say that everything that was discussed, that they had an opportunity to cross-examine on. So I'll just ask, staff first, would you like to respond to some of the, I know you've responded first. Let me ask you this, Mr. Shad. I can only imagine the number of hours, but I won't have to imagine for long, the number of hours you've spent responding to the very detailed correspondence we've received from Mr. Ungen and others, particularly Mr. Ungen on behalf of Millennium. Can you estimate the number of hours in just the last month or so?
Maybe 50 hours.
Pardon me?
Maybe 50 hours.
50 hours.
Between staff members. It's a lot.
Yes. Is there, I know a lot of the concerns that were raised, I think you've addressed before. Is there anything you want to highlight now?
Sure. First I want to talk a little bit about the deceleration lane that was in the previous approval for Congress Avenue. So first, Mr. Abrams, I believe it is, said that there was no evidence in the record that there was insufficient right-of-way to provide that. In fact, that turn lane was drawn on the previous approval from 2020, and what that drawing showed was that adding the right turn lane pushed the sidewalk, which is also a public improvement that has to be in the county right-of-way, onto land owned by